So guys, here's a review for our third formative test. Question 1, we're looking at a circuit training exercise, looking at 6 stations. They talk about uh, looking at maximum number of repetitions they can get in a fixed time of 1 minute, 15-second rest, so fixed work to rest ratio, and they give you the exercises down below here, the shuttle runs, push-ups, step-ups, sit-ups, etc. So identify the training method used. Fairly simple, circuit training. Clear that we have different activities with prescribed work to rest ratio. One person wrote interval training. Same principles as interval, but different exercise where interval would tend to focus on the same exercise. B, why do exercises in this training session alternate between that use the muscle groups in the upper body and lower body? A few people didn't get this correct, and we're looking at keywords like appropriate recovery for each of the muscles. So work muscles in the upper body, then break between upper body, may allow for ATP PC stores to replenish to allow for continued maximal effort in that period. Same with lower body exercise, removal of lactic acid, things like that. C, use data from the table page opposite. So it's essential that you use the data. Explain one way that the student could achieve progressive overload. A lot of people did use the data, which was excellent. So apply the FIT principle to any of the exercises. So options could be reduce the rest period from 10 to 15 seconds, increase the time from 1 minute to 1 minute 15 seconds, do the circuit twice instead of once. So simple ones there. A lot of people, there was some people that said increased time or reduced rest period, but they didn't refer to the data, which you need to do was the question asked, and there's a good practice to do anyway. Identify one fitness factor that the student participating in this training session might develop. So they might have developed muscular endurance would be the key one. The type of exercise, e.g. push-ups, sit-ups, so the isolated muscle groups completing repeated contractions over an extended period of time, so 1 minute. This will increase that muscular group's ability to be able to handle this kind of stress, thus muscular endurance increase. You'd see muscular hypertrophy increase from that as well, which would allow for that muscular endurance. Explain one change you'd make to the training session in order to apply the principle of specificity for an elite basketballer. A basketballer needs a really good vertical leap, so you'd include exercises that would see power increase in the legs. So plyometric exercises, jump squats, lunges, calf raises. Some people mentioned coordination exercises. That was a bit left to centre. But I gave marks for that because that was really focused on that skill, being able to get muscle groups together to be able to use your hands and perform those skills. So that was good, but primarily we're looking at the plyometric jumping exercises. Question 2, so interval training is a common method. So this looks at 3 different types of sessions, X, Y, and Z. Each session consisted of 8 workouts. We can see there that Y had a really increased blood lactate, X sort of increased the blood lactate toward the end, and Z had a real consistent blood lactate of lower, and then they had the key there, the work to rest ratios. So calculate the work to rest ratio for session X. So we had 30 seconds work, 60 seconds rest, which means a 1 to 2 work ratio. Easy marks there. What was the likely cause of fatigue in the athlete that completed the interval training session? Use data from the graph above. So again, using data, blood lactate accumulation, 2 reasons. 60-second work, 120 seconds rest, not enough time to remove blood lactate from the bloodstream. Before another high-intensity effort. We know that for every 10 seconds of lactic acid work, you have to have 6 minutes of recovery time. Second reason, we can see at 30 minutes here that session Y has a significantly higher blood lactate level of 13 compared to other athletes 8 and 4. So a lot of answers I wrote refer to the graph, make sure you pull that data off because it asks for it. And that would have got you the 2 marks there. With reference to interplay of energy system, the athlete, explain why interval training session produced lower level of blood lactate than was produced by the other sessions. So 10 seconds work, 180 seconds rest. We know that full ATP stores are replenished after 3 minutes. During the recovery period, the aerobic system would have been working to replenish these stores so the athlete can be primarily working the PC for the next effort. So we wouldn't have been getting into the lactic acid system. To finish off that answer, I probably should have put it in there, would have been lactic acid would have would have seen small amounts of lactic acid build up, as we can see here, due to the lactic acid contributing, small, or in a small part during that ATP PC workout. The size and body shape of athletes tend to be very similar in specific sports. They often give an advantage. So we're looking here at different somatotypes. So which athlete, R, S, or T, has the body shape of an ectomorph? So we're looking at ectomorph, lean, low muscularity. So that would be athlete S. And then athlete T would be most likely be an elite gymnast. So elite gymnast, a mesomorph with low center of gravity, so the low height. So I think there's only a couple of people that picked R. And again, it was sort of needing to have a knowing of the gymnasts and that low center of gravity. To identify one fitness test that's used to measure body composition. So BMI test, a lot of people just got that off their own back. It was a bit of a question that we didn't really study for, but you just need to know these tests. So BMI test looks at weight to height ratios, however it doesn't take into consideration muscle mass versus fat percentage. D, the average male untrained and athlete have an ideal body mass of 85 kilos, identical body mass of 85 kilos, but their body shape, size and composition are substantially different. Explain 2 performance advantages of athlete R would gain from his body shape if asked to sprint 100 metres. So, height, which a lot of people write, so longer limbs would allow for greater stride length, meaning the athlete could cover more ground per step. But also muscle mass, which most people covered. Greater muscle mass for athlete R means they would be able to generate more power per stride, meaning their movements would be more powerful, faster, thus finishing the race in a shorter time. I think it was Daniel that wrote, with a more muscle mass, it also has more stores of PC, so we can work without lactate accumulating for longer, may not fatigue it as easily in the back end of 100 metres. So that was a really good answer. 4. Identify and explain which zone would be recommended as part of endurance runners' taper the day before a 10,000 metre event. Now, this was sort of, some people got this right, some people sort of a bit unsure, but when we're looking at taper, we want to be working in that zone 1. Why? This means that the athlete would not need a big recovery period. If the athlete worked at a higher level, they would need to replace that extensive glycogen stores and repair muscles and things like that. So they would be working that lower zone. B, identify which training heart rate, zone 1, 2 or 3 the runner would be working in during session Y. So session Y looked at 45 minutes runs as an easy intensity. So again, they would be working in training zone 1. They able to carry out a conversation, perhaps the breathing rate is lowered and therefore, I didn't finish that on. C, explain which training session X or Y would likely to show higher levels of accumulated blood lactate. Because training zone 1, because training session Y was run at easy intensity, you'd assume that the training X would be the one that would have the high accumulated levels of blood lactate without even looking at the table. But now we'll look at it. 17 times 300 metres in 45 seconds with 90 seconds walk recovery. The 45 seconds suggests high intensity activity in the lactic acid system. High intensity activity, so you have to complete that 300 metres in 45 seconds. So you'd be pushing yourself. 45 seconds also, we're working 35 seconds in that lactic acid system primarily. And only 90 seconds walk does not allow for enough active recovery to move all that lactic acid. So we'd be working having that lactic acid build up. All right, name the training method used in session X. So if we go back, session X there, able to carry out a conversation. Section X, 17 times 300 metres. would be that interval training, structured work to rest ratio. How could the training principle of overload be applied in the training session X? Give an example for your answer, again using data. So it's a very similar question to what we did before. So 17 times 300 metre runs, we could increase the frequency to 18 or 19. If the run's completed in 45 seconds, we could reduce the time to complete, or we could reduce the amount of rest time, 90 to 80 seconds. So those are the three key things from the table that you could have pulled out. All right, periodization is the division of the yearly training program into shorter phases. Refer to the following graph, which shows the training intensity and duration, training time for a training endurance runner in 2 phases of the training year. Explain which column, A or B, is likely to represent the competitive phase of the runner's training year. So I said training zone A, less training load overall. So B compared to 160 compared to 117 hours. Now, if you'd taken that information off, either way I would have given you at least a mark. The principle of pre-season training with a higher high training load would suggest that A would be the more competitive phase, reduce the training load, and that's just a general principle. So we might, different athletes might do different things, but the general principle would be that B would have more of a pre-season load, a higher 160 hours, where the zone A might have reduced hours when tapering towards an event. So hopefully that clears that up. All right, on page 11, throughout the training year, the runner supplemented running training with specific resistance training. Describe one advantage of the resistance training for endurance runner. Again, going back to that chronic adaptations, resistance training increases muscular hypertrophy of the resistance athlete. So this allows for more fuel stores, for one, PC and glycogen in the muscle, but more importantly, increased mitochondria, allowing for greater rates of aerobic respiration, aiding the VO2 max for the endurance athlete. So some people wrote a lot more about the power side of things, increase strength and things like that. But we've got to remember with the muscular hypertrophy, if we're increasing that does have that aerobic benefit, which is the increased mitochondria for allowing for aerobic respiration and the increased VO2 max. Explain the difference that you would expect to see between the resistance training program of the endurance runner and the resistance training program of the 100-meter sprinter. So rather than the physical attributes, looking at the training program. So simply, endurance runner, the resistance training would be low resistance, high repetitions, building muscular endurance. Sprinter, low repetitions, high resistance, building power and strength. For those people who wrote some muddled answers, that's just simply what you needed to write. Suggest one reason for changing the amount of resistance training as the endurance trainer enters different phases of the training year. So I just wrote, allowing for the best possible performance. They may have a lower weight training as the athlete is tapering for an event at the competition phase. They may have an increase in weight training as the athlete is pre-season preparation phase where the fitness components are being built up. So a lot of people wrote answers that were very general. So that answer was specific for different times of the year. So 2 marks, I talked about competition phase and preparation phase again, like you would have in the question previous where we talked about endurance to sprinter. So just making it clear for each other. Okay, so hopefully this was a good learning experience. Go through it a couple of times. Make sure that you've got all answers that I've given and match them up against your answers. Again, I can't stress enough, the language improved so much from the last time you did this process. So please make sure that that's your number one priority before we do anything. Enjoy your holidays and good luck for exams when we come back.